Today we're going to talk about what's new in business continuity management. And we have Aswin who's going to detail some of the features and give a demo. And we'll just get started right now if everybody's ready. So just a couple of things to get started on. We do have a lot of future webinars coming up that are great. And this session specifically is part of our live on ServiceNow, which is a curated event series that is connecting you with ServiceNow experts and your peers. And this can help you with your deployments of your products and help you achieve value faster. We hope that you can join us again for another webinar or meetup, and you'll see the schedule by scanning the QR code or using the link that you'll be finding in today's chat. Additionally, we have quite a few risk events coming up specifically for our area of business. And we've got some great topics that will talk about what's new across the entire risk portfolio. So today we're talking specifically, as I said, about business continuity management, but we're also going to have a series of events over the next few weeks to talk about other developments that we've made. So we really hope that you can join us for those. And you can sign up for those in the community. There also will be a code at the end of this session to help you facilitate sign up. So I do want to introduce you to today's speakers. My name is Rosalind Morville, and I'm the product marketing manager for BCM, operational resilience, and our vendor risk management product. Aswin is the principal product manager for BCM and operational resilience. And with that, he is and execution of everything related to these products. So welcome, Aswin.
Hey, hello everyone.
So we've got, and I would have said 3, but Aswin's sneaking in a 4th feature to highlight today. We're going to talk about auto-populating related items. We're going to talk about how you activate tasks based upon a predefined sequence. And we're going to talk about how you track the execution of some of those results. The 4th feature we're going to detail a little bit about is BCM Lite. And so we're going to talk about that user role and how you can use that within your offering. So specifically about auto-populating related items, this is a way that you can repurpose data across systems, programs, and it helps you reduce the amount of rekeying or re-entering information when you're planning or conducting your business continuity exercises. We've introduced ways of auto-populating. We have ways of manually adding if you need to, if it's something that's not currently within ServiceNow, copying and relating those items throughout your BC processes and plans. Along with that, there are also notifications, and Aswin will talk about a little bit about that. So just to give a clarification on how the data flows through the BCM workflow, Aswin will go into details about how you bring that data from the CMDB into your BIAs, how you can bring that into other related plans, and how that flows through to the exercises that you're planning. Our second feature, where we are talking about activating tasks on a predefined sequence, it's where you're sequencing tasks based on your BC plan, and you're automating one task that can be activated from a preceding task. So you can set up these tasks or subtasks to meet some complex needs and goals that you have with your business continuity plans, and it enhances the user experience for you. So we're really excited to bring this feature to you. And then finally, we'll touch a little bit on tracking the execution results. So you want to look at the execution of your plans, any deviation in delivery time, and we want to talk about those successes that you achieve by being able to filter all this information through your BCM. So we've really brought you some real great, I think, user experience enhancements, and Aswin's going to detail what those are in a demo. So if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Ross. Yep, definitely. Let me share my screen. And I hope you guys can see my screen now.
Yes.
Right? All right. So let's look at how the CMDB data gets reused in the BIAs and then subsequently in the plans, and then how that gets transferred into the exercises and crisis events, right? That's the first important functionality that we have introduced. Let's go over the details now, right? You guys might have seen already from previous releases that we have this capability for you to identify the dependencies that are already there in the CMDB and bring it into business impact analysis, right? This is an existing functionality, but this is one of the key links in this whole data reuse value, right? The functionality itself. So I'm going to touch upon this for a little bit, and then we can move on to the next one. So I'm doing an application technical impact analysis for an application called, let's say, in this case, ServiceNow, right? This is one of the applications that your team manages. I'm taking an example of an IT recovery today, right? So in this case, I am the application owner. I'm doing a business impact analysis for this. I can see how many business processes that I support, etc. And then the next piece is to do the dependency mapping, right? So if I have already identified the dependencies of the application and the underlying infrastructure using auto discovery or service mapping and stored it in the CMDB, what we could do is the user can simply click on add dependencies if there are any new dependencies that will get pulled into the application automatically. Here's an example for that, right? So there are 3 hardware dependencies that I had mapped in the CMDB. When I clicked on add dependency, it would pull it in. And you would see that the relationship source is updated as CMDB here because it's already done in the CMDB and it's getting reused, right? This was something that we already had released in the previous release. Same way, it can go across different categories of dependencies. In this case, it's not coming from the CMDB, but then the user has manually mapped it inside the BCM application. That's what this is about, right? And so on. So you can have some things coming from the CMDB, some more data enrichment happening within the BCM application. Yeah, like Ross mentioned, if you guys have any questions, please add it in the chat and or the Q&A. We would be able to pick that up. Thank you. So these are the different elements coming from the CMDB itself. Now, there was a question from some of our customers. For answering that for the larger audience, let me show you how you can control what dependencies from the CMDB matters for your business continuity planning program, right? You don't want to bring in all the individual items that have been identified in the CMDB because the tables in the CMDB are huge and it can hold n number of relationships, right? And when it comes to business continuity management, you might not be interested to pull in everything from there. You are only interested in critical applications, critical, servers or infrastructure, etc. Right? So you would be able to go in to the business continuity management application as an administrator, go into the element definitions, and you can define what are those elements that are critical for me when it comes to business continuity management, planning, and execution of the program. You can ignore the rest of the items and tables or classes, the CI classes, in other terms, from the CMDB. That will not get pulled into your BCM application, right? So that is the this is the place where you would be able to mention what is the source table, and for each of the source table, you would also be able to mention what is the filter condition. If you were to add a filter condition, you would be able to say, I want to add a filter condition, and you can choose a type of filter, right? You would be able to choose any of this and provide the value to that, and only those CIs that are from this table and satisfies this condition will get pulled into BCM. So this is the setup part. Now, the reason we have done this is, one is you don't want to pull in all the CIs or CI classes from the CMDB. That would already be taken care of by this table that you select here and classify it as computer rooms, for example. But then probably not all computer rooms are going to be significant when it comes to business continuity and ITDR planning, right? let's say there are some critical servers stored, some of the things are hosted there which are critical, etc. You can classify those computer rooms with a flag, and you can mention what that flag is and then pull that in with the right set of let's say critical CI, right? Only those computer rooms which are flagged off as critical CIs will get pulled into BCM. So you can only get the filtered list, and that will be available in your BIA here, right? Once your BIA is done, this is the new functionality that we have released, right? So let me start creating a plan. I already have created one and placed it here. In case things do not work, we can go look at that. But let me start creating one for now. Critical application plan, right? This is an application recovery plan that I'm creating. Let me say this is an application recovery plan template. I've chosen the template. I can choose the department and I can say submit, right? Now the plan, we have added 2 new tabs or functionality that you would be able to see, which is a delta from the previous release, right? That is called related assets. Initially, it will be empty, as well as the related plans. Now, when I add the scope, we were talking about ServiceNow as an application, right? We said this is an application related plan. So we could add that. So let me add where's ServiceNow? 1 second. There we go. So I have added this particular ServiceNow as an application. The system already identifies the recovery time objective, the recent recovery point objective, and the BIA. This is because we can see that, sorry about that. This is the most recently approved and published BIA. Once this gets identified, the application automatically understands what are the related assets, right? And it gets pulled in, very similar to this one. So once I add this, you would be able to see these are the related items. So all the related items here will get pulled in from the corresponding BIA. So when I say the corresponding BIA, that is this one, right? So irrespective of whether that's coming in from the CMDB into BIA, or someone has enriched it manually in the BIA itself, right? This will get pulled into the next level of planning, that is your business continuity plans. Once it gets pulled into the business continuity plans, you would be able to see that the related plans also gets pulled in. So to the related items, right? In this case, there is a data center recovery plan, there is a hardware recovery plan, and alternate supplier plan. So the related plans are maintained by 3 different teams, right? These are maintained by the vendor team. This is by the hardware team, IT team, and then the data center team who is responsible for the operations of this data center. And these individual plans are covering these different elements. But then for me to have my application called ServiceNow up and running, we have identified these as the dependencies, these assets, and they have a corresponding recovery plan for themselves. So when I'm creating a master plan for my application, the system tells me these are the underlying plans that also have to be executed when you're doing your exercise, right? So this is the first step. Once we have pulled in these plans, the enhancement that we have done next is where in the recovery tasks, we had the capability to do the recovery tasks already, right? Let me see if I have an example there. Just give me a second. Okay. So I can go into the recovery tasks and I can say prerequisite task 1, right? I can assign it to an owner. And I can say what is the scope of this particular task, and I can say create. It gets created here. Once the prerequisite tasks are done, I would be able to say, let's say, for example, activate hardware recovery, right? I can assign it to an owner who is responsible for activating this. I can say which is the scope of this item, right? It could be a hardware data center zone. And the dependency for starting this is I have to ensure that the prerequisite tasks are completed. Once it is done, I can say refer to a different plan here. So I'd be able to click on this and I would be able to select the, I'm sorry, one second. Right, I'd be able to select the hardware recovery plan that is an related plan to this, right? So we would pull in all the related plans and you can create this branching off of the tasks within this master plan, right? Activate data center plan. I can assign it to a different user, right? And I can say, this is the dependency. So once the hardware recovery plan is completed, then you have to activate the data center recovery plan next, right? So that is defined as a dependency from one plan to the other. The tasks can be dependent as well from one plan to the other, right? And we can also add more items in this where we can say activate alternate vendor plan, and we can assign it to an user who's supposed to be working on that, right? So I can also add that. I can say this doesn't have to wait for the previous plan to complete, but this is a parallel task that can be started, right? So I can add that and create it. So like this, you'd be able to create the tasks. When you're creating the tasks, you can mention that one of the tasks is actually not an individual item, but then it has to branch off into an entirely new plan itself. So each plan in this case can have, let's say, 10 or 20 tasks. So the way that it will get executed is what we will see next. So during this creation, you can also mention, for example, let's say post recovery task 1, right? And you can assign it to an owner here. You can mention the assets or CIs that needed. And once the last task is completed, let's say you want to kick off the task backend. So this one is an individual task as well, right? So this is how you would be able to pull in the related assets. That is from the CMDB, it gets pulled into BIS. From the BIS, it gets pulled into related assets, right? If we have completed the BIS for each one of this item, and if we have a recovery time objective and a recovery tier, those would get pulled in as well. And if these items have related plans already created and stored in the system, right, they will get pulled in as related plans. For example, we have data center, hardware recovery, and alternate supplier, right? Let's see those ones here. Those should be here in this, right? So each one of this are already published plan in the system. So the user would be able to go in and see that these are the plans that have got created and they are related to assets which support my application. So these gets pulled in as related plans and you can sequence them in the order that you want them to be executed. So this is the plan getting the data from the BIA and BIA getting the data from the CMDB. And you can, of course, set the sequence and also mention what is the order in which they should get executed. You can establish dependency between a task in one plan to a task in other plan. That is, data center plan can be activated only when the last task of this particular plan is getting completed, right? So you can set that. Earlier, we did not have this capability as well. So this is the first enhancement. The second one is when it comes to recovery.
I do actually have one question just about dependencies.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if does this include service mapping, and if not, is that planned?
As long as this is going to be captured in the CMDB, we will pull it in, no matter from where or which methodology you are adding the dependencies. Ensure that this is getting recorded in the CMDB as dependencies. We would pull that in. So what I mean by that is, so if I go into applications, right? Business applications, let me just business applications, and we were looking at ServiceNow, right? So this is the CMDB view of the business applications. As long as these are established within this, we will get it in. So it doesn't matter if you're uploading this from an external system, or you're opening this as a GUI and then updating it manually, or you're getting it captured via any of the other components, right? So if it is in the CMDB, we read it from the golden source. We treat the CMDB as the foundational layer for this data records and the interdependencies between them. So this is the key element. As long as it's there, it will get pulled into your BIS. And like I said, you don't have to pull in everything, right? So if you see here, the application called ServiceNow, this is the application we were working on, right? So it has a lot of different items that it depends on, but we did not pull in all of this because you had not configured the critical elements for your BCM program, right? So these are the ones that we have configured. So only those gets pulled in if they are already identified in the CMDB, but there's no cap limit on this. You would be able to configure n number of classes, CI classes, right? If you want the, let's say, for example, the mass storage devices, you just have to configure that as a user, administrator, and that will get added as one more category here, and those will get pulled in as well. So you can decide which one of these, the classes, is critical for my BCM application and team, and only those will get pulled in, right? So that's the key. So all of that points back to the CMDB tables. So that is one of the items. And if you want to capture the items that are outside the CMDB, that you can also configure here. For example, vendors. Vendors does not come from the CMDB tables in this case, right? If you're managing it outside in ServiceNow's platform, there's a table called company table or core company table. These are records that are there, but we said we need that to be part of BCM because we want to plan for alternate vendors and in case of supply chain resiliency kind of plans, right? So you'd be able to pull in that information and tag it to your application or your business process, right? If it is a business continuity plan, it will be, of course, a business process or a service or a location, right? When it comes to ITDR, it's going to be an application or a data center dependency. So you'd be able to add that. It's a combination of what is there in the CMDB already and then enriched manually during the BIA phase. That gets pulled into your plans eventually, right? So if you see, once I have this data inside the BIA, right, that is the CMDB data as well as the manually entered data, both of them. This is the company information. This is the hardware information, right? If I go into the plan that we were working on, I said my application is ServiceNow. I want to create a plan for that, right? If you go into the related assets, it pulls in the same company items from the BIA, right? And it would have also pulled in the hardware that we were looking at, hardware entries, right? This also comes from the BIA. Because from the CMDB, it went into the BIA, and from there, we are pulling it in. If there is any change in the underlying CMDB records, you can subscribe to the changes as an owner or someone who wants to be on the watch list, right? You would be able to get that email, and then if there is any changes, you can make that changes in the BIA as well as your plans. That's how we trickle down the changes and notifications to the owners of these elements. Any other questions before I move into the next item?
There are a couple. So can you remove a dependency for exam?
Yeah. For example,
I don't have a Linux server. I have Windows service instead of a complete blank. Can I remove it from my plan
So if you don't want these three, let's say, or if you don't want any of this or this, you just select that. You will see a remove button that pops up once you made the selection. Till then, I think it's going to be hidden, right? So, or disabled, for example. It automatically pulls in everything. The first level of check is what you can decide what needs to get into my BIA, right? Like I said, not everything gets pulled in. It's based on what you want to get into the BIA. In most of the cases, it's going to be, if it's in the BIA, I want to reuse this, right? So it will also come up in the plan. From the BIA, it will get pulled in here. But at this point in time, if you decide, I don't want to handle it in this plan, but maybe I want to do it as a separate plan, you can very well go ahead, select it, and then say, I will maintain a hardware thing as a separate item. I don't want to include it here. You can remove it. This will get removed.
Great. And can you, if you're using mapped application services, will that be pulled in?
Like I said, not everything will get pulled in. It can be configured by the administrator, right? So these are the categories that I have configured. The place where you will configure this is, as an administrator, you would be able to go into, so the business continuity, and then there is an administrative capability where you can go and say, these are the elements that I want to use in my BCM process, right? And by that team. For example, I don't want end user computers, so I've not added it here. If I want that, I can simply say add and define it as one of the elements that needs to be used in the BCM application. Then it will get pulled in. Until that is done, this is not going to be pulled in.
Great. And a further question on dependency assessments.
Yeah.
On the BIAs for in-scope items, that gets pulled in?
I didn't get that, Ross. Can you just add?
So Christopher said, so all the dependency assessments on the BIAs for the scope items get pulled into the plan.
That is correct. So, and then this is not like only the downstream dependencies, right? If I create a plan for an downstream item, the upstream item will get pulled in as well. So let's talk about this for a minute and then we can move on. So here I'm creating an plan for an application, right? So it pulled in all the infrastructure under that or whatever items that it depends on as the related items, right? So this is one way of looking at it. So if I have to recover this particular application, I want to first finish recovering all of this, right? That's one way of looking at it. If I also want to do the other way around, right? So let's look at the approved plans. Let me go into that for a second. Let's look at hardware recovery plan, right? So I have created this plan for these two hardware servers. When I say these are the items that I'm trying to recover, what this does is it automatically pulls in the upstream element, right? And it has related assets. This is one of the enhancements that we have planned for next release. Currently, it pulls in both upstream and downstream. We will add a column here that flags it off saying whether this is an upstream dependency or a downstream dependency. So that will give you more clarity. But today, it actually pulls in both. So you will get both of this into the plan as related items. And the same will get pulled into the recovery events as well. We will see that next. Any
one
other
final
questions?
question, and this one may be specific to this person, so please guide me on that. With the source CMDB, we had originally set this up so the BIA dependencies link to the CMDB. Today, however, it shows as the source BCM. When users selected BIA dependencies, they were able to select from assets from our CMDB. Does this seem like a problem moving forward for us with the new release?
No, it wouldn't be. So the assets that you select within, so I think there's a slight confusion there, right? Let me show you. Let me edit this for a second. And this should make it clear. Just give me a second. Okay. Here, right? So these are my hardware dependencies, right? I'm going to delete or remove this for a minute. And then let's see, if I click on add dependencies, this would say 3 things are added. Basically, because these were already established in the CMDB and it got pulled in automatically, right? I didn't add one by one. So that's why this is saying it is coming from the CMDB. Now, if I want to add it manually here, let's say somebody missed adding one more item in the CMDB, right? But I want to proceed with my BCM program or process. So I can go click on this. I'll see everything from the CMDB listed here. And then I can select, let's say, one or two of them and say add. Now, when this gets added, that is, I have added it within the BCM application. This is not getting added directly in the CMDB, right? That is when this will get flagged off as BCM, right? This was identified in the BCM process. So one of the easiest ways for you to handle that kind of a situation. Now, this is not in the CMDB, right? This is created only in BCM. So if you want to have a report created that says how many of such outliers are there, which were identified outside our CMDB, there can be a report that is easily created, and that can be used for you to populate the CMDB with such identified items outside your actual CMDB team. So this is something that we are planning in the future as a separate report that calls out these items that got added outside our purview, right? For the CMDB owner, they would be able to pull that in and say, yes, this makes sense. Let's update the CMDB with these records. But today, this information is made available inside the BCM application. The next time, if this gets added in the CMDB, and when you're refreshing your BIA, this also will start reading as CMDB as the source. That's the idea behind this functionality. So it shouldn't impact how you guys are using this today, because this is an existing functionality and we have not changed anything here. Okay, I think there are some more questions. Let me take that as well.
Yeah, there's in the chat.
Yeah, so we can take a couple of more questions and then we can get back to you guys on the rest of the ones later. The upstream and downstream dependencies are the ones that you support and then that are supporting you, right? So that is the upstream dependencies. Upstream dependencies are the ones that you support. Downstream dependencies are the ones you are dependent on. That will be captured in your relationship type in the CMDB. We base it on that, and then those will be classified as upstream and downstream dependencies.
Do you have the other ones, or?
Yeah, I'm just reading.
Don't want to rush you.
What was the component that the BIA done on that all pulled off it automatically? Yeah, so it is the when you say component, basically it is the item that I am starting the BIA on. We select what the BIA applies to, basically, right? When I say this is ServiceNow, is the application for which I'm creating the BIA, it will go look for the ServiceNow as an item in this particular table. Basically, it is coming from the application table, right? So it will go into application table, look for ServiceNow. It will look for everything that is related to ServiceNow, and it will pull in only the items for which you have set the filters. In this case, hardware, data centers, and so on. We discussed this, right? So it is based on this particular applies to item. To what does this BIA apply? Based on this, it will pull in everything. It doesn't have to be an application always. It can be a business process, in which case you can pull in the facilities, people, department, functions, applications, suppliers, all of those, right? So I'm just using this as an example for today, but the same construct can be applied across any of the items that is sitting in our platform, basically. If it's related to one another, and if you want that to be pulled in, you just have to identify one of them, and the others or the rest will get pulled into the dependencies automatically. And from here, it will get passed on to the plans. Is relationship source on the, yes, so the relationship source is on the BIA analysis table. This is not passed back to the CMDB, like I said, but that's a report that you guys can create. Or if you guys are ready to wait for it, we will be releasing it in the next release of BCM, right? So we can definitely add the technical services, right? In fact, I think I had an example in one of the demos we did earlier, where we had, instead of the hardware dependencies and others, you can also have technical services or application services that can get pulled in as well. The network services, any of these, that it doesn't have any limit on what you can define as the dependency here, right? As long as it's there in our platform, we can define it as a dependency. And if you have established that um, in the CMDB, it gets pulled in automatically. If you want to add manually and enrich it within BCM, you can do it as well. Like I did, you can click on add new, you can select from it, and then you can pull that in. The only thing is the admin has to say that these technical services has to be captured as one of the categories here, right? As long as that is done, it will start working. And for that, there's a GUI, right? So like I was showing you guys this one, I just have to go here and say technical services, and I just have pointed to the technical services table. So it'll just get added as a category and it'll start working. Okay, one last question, and then we will move on to the next one. All right, service offering. Yeah, so like I said, there's no cap size on that, so that should work. Service offering, application services, technical services, any of this, right? All of that will work with this. Able to opt to link any of our plans together manually. Yes, so if you want to link the plans together manually, I was talking about this getting pulled in automatically, right? So this says the source is BIA. Based on that is what these plans got pulled in. Here also, you'd be able to go in and say, these are the other plans that I want to add, right? So let's say continuity of operations plan. So here you would say that this got added manually. This is the source from where it got pulled in automatically, right? So this will do that differentiation. If you don't want to have all the plans pulled in automatically from the BIA, you can turn it off, and then you can go identify the next plans manually as well. In case you want to manage these plans as a master plan and then the sub plans. Remember, each one of this is a plan in by itself, and each one can be maintained by a different team. The advantage is you're just referencing that here, and if this plan changes tomorrow, you don't have to do anything, right? It's already linked to the plan, and the changes will automatically get kicked in. We will see that next, how that gets added, right? If this has today 20 tasks, you just tag the plan. Tomorrow somebody changes 5 of the tasks and adds 30 more. It's anyways already tagged. When you activate this plan, this will get implicitly activated, and the new set of tasks is what will get fired, right? So the plans are maintained by individual teams. It's more like a federated governance model, and you're just referring to those relevant items. That's the idea here. Yeah. So the way that the plans get pulled into related plans automatically is because these plans are tagged to these data center zones, right? I'll just take this as an example. NY15A data center zone, LY, and things like this, right? Now, during our technical impact analysis, we said there is data center zones that my application is dependent on, right? If I go into this, these are the data center zones I am dependent on, right? This came from the CMDB. Now, these data center zones have their own plans being created by the data center zone team, right? They are already stored in the application. Now, when I said this is the scope of my planning, it pulled in the related data center zones. It looks for whether there is a recovery plan for these zones already created by that respective team, and it identifies there is one plan that is related to that, and that's how that gets pulled in here. Once I have all of this pulled in, the plans also are getting pulled in based on the relationship between the assets and the primary item that you're trying to create the plan for. Once I have the plans pulled in, I can go and sequence it based on my requirement, how they should get executed. This is currently it's just getting pulled in. All the plans are getting pulled in, right? Then I can go and say the order in which it should activate the plans is first do a prerequisite task, or it can be 10 tasks, right? And then you activate the hardware recovery plan. Once it's done, activate the data center recovery plan. Once that is done, activate the alternate vendor plan. Once all of these are done, do some post exercise checks. And all of this is successful, then the exercise is successful. And I would have recovered my primary goal, that is my application that I was supposed to recover. This is how you can pull in all the information that's already stored and then sequence your recovery strategy or the procedures, right? So that's how this will be, used in the recovery as well. Yeah, so if the RPO gets updated, this will already be pulled in because this is coming from the BIA, right? Like here. So this will be the latest RPO of the scope and as well as these items, right? The related items. This will get pulled in from the latest approved BIAs, right? So if I start again another BIA for one of these items, unless it is approved, this will not reflect that. Once it's approved and it gets moved into the state called approved. So initially it will be in draft and reviewed pending approval. During all of this, it will not be pulled in. The moment it gets into the approved state, we will pull that into the plan. That's how that works. Okay, so let me quickly touch upon two more topics, right? One is pulling all of the same information into the recovery, right? Let's look at the exercise part now. Let me go and again, I also already have one of those lined up, but then let's see. Quarterly application recovery, right? So let's just do that. And then I'll say functional and I can say a planned date. And during the scoping earlier, you had to select everything that you wanted to put through the test, right? Or the exercise. Now, currently what we are doing is we are using the same concept. So as soon as, that is this one that we were discussing, as soon as I select one item, it will pull in everything that has to be recovered along with that, right? That is the idea. So we will use the same thing like applications and let's say, I think we used an application called ServiceNow. So when I pull in the assets called ServiceNow, because these plans are under edit mode now, right? That's why it's not getting pulled in. Like I said, it should be published. Once it gets published, it will get automatically pulled in. But for the demo sake, I already parked one of them under this. So basically, as soon as you add the ServiceNow as one of the items that you need to do the exercise on, all of these other items that you see here, that is the data center zones, computer rooms, all of this will get automatically populated in this view. Not only this ones, it will also automatically pull in your plans. Basically, this is the master plan, right? So we said there are some prerequisite tasks, and these are the ones that has to branch out to separate plans as well. And then some checks. So the related plans will be here. So as and when you move on from task 1 is completed, then task 2 will get triggered. When it comes to task number 3, it will know that this has to execute a hardware recovery plan separately. It will go into that and it will finish these 4 tasks. Once this is done, it will go back to this one. It will look at the next one, that is the data center recovery plan. It will go into this, finish these 3. Then it will start triggering the supplier tasks, right? So it will go into this, finish these 3. And finally, you will be able to see that these tasks get triggered as well or fired. The owners would be responsible for updating the status. Once all of this is done, you'd be able to see that total time taken and which ones were recovered and so on. And finally, you can make your summary for the exercise and close the exercise. Currently, this is work in progress, right? So this is the next level of automation with the same data. So that's how this gets pulled in. So from CMDB to BIA, BIA to plan, and from there to the exercises. And along with the related items, all the related plans and the sequence in which they should be executed will get pulled in. This is basically the task that we created, right? And we said This is the dependency sequence. Based on the sequencing, these tasks will be fired one after the other. And once everything is completed, you'll be able to get the result. So this doesn't have to be always based on applications and its dependencies, right? You can also use the same concept for departments or locations. Let's say you want to do it per department. As long as the department is related to everything under that department, right? Using your BIA, if you are able to achieve that and you're interlinking all of the elements under that, when you're doing your exercise, you just have to select your department and everything under that will get pulled in as part of your scope. So this is an enhancement on the scoping and then activating the plan in the right sequence and tracking the exercises. This is the next functionality that we have enhanced here. So when you upgrade, the plans will get created, but the sequencing will not be updated, right? So you won't be able to see the sequencing. So basically, you will have to click on the edit button and these should get populated with the latest data. But the sequencing of the tasks basically will have to be redone because that will not know the related plans, right? So that is something that you will have to do. This was answering the question on the chat. There is another question from Scott. If during completion of a task list an issue is encountered, where do we need to either roll back or use a different task list? Is that supported? Yeah. So if there is an task that is not getting executed, and if you are facing an issue, what we simply do is you can either say skip this task, right, and move on to the next one. Even though there's a dependency, it will move on to the next item. Or you can say this is closed as incomplete. So if I say this is under work in progress, right, I can say closed as completed. For example, if it is successfully done, if I've tried everything and then it's not getting completed as expected, right, but there's nothing more to do, I can say it's closed incomplete, right? I can put in my reasons for that, and then I can send it back to the crisis manager who is coordinating everything, and that person can take a call on how the next sets and steps should proceed. That's how we handle that. Okay, so that was the functional enhancements. There's one more thing that we wanted to touch upon today. That is business continuity management user Lite. This is one of the important functionality that we have released in terms of licensing and roles. So let's look at this. And if you have any questions, again, please do ping us on the Q&A or on the chat, right? So earlier we had this concept of BCM operator and BCM, the business users, right? So BCM operators are the users who have the role that allows them to edit anything in the system. That is BIAs, BCPs, events, recovery tasks, etc. All of them, right? They are the heavy users. So we had got this request from you guys that all of our customers that there is an user role and a necessity that doesn't have to eventually do all of this heavy lifting, but then they have to participate in BCM process. So we have introduced something called as BCM Lite operator. So let's see what this user can do, this user with this role can do, and how this will be metered for licensing, right? So the BCM operator Lite operator, right? These are the different activities that they can perform in the application. Basically, business impact analysis, whatever has been published in their department, they will be able to read it, right? And if that is a questionnaire that is sent to them for answers, let's say, for example, there's someone from the legal department who needs to provide some answers and contribute to your BIA, you'll be able to send it to them and they will be able to respond or update the answers. Let me show you how that is done. So in the business impact analysis, the user who owns this, right? The owner is an operator, but the owner can already go in and say, I want to get input from, let's say, Sean in this case, right? So they get added as a contributor here. They would be able to go and provide answers in this particular BIA where they are tagged, right? They won't be able to start a new BIA by themselves. But if they are tagged as a contributor, they'll be able to go provide the answers, right? And they will get counted as a light operator, not as an operator, not as the heavy user, but as a light user. Similarly, business continuity plans, they can download and read. Continuity exercises also, same way crisis events and recovery tasks also they can read and they can update the status, right? Where that is when I am creating my plans, when we were creating the plans, we added some of these owners for each task, right? So these people might not be heavy users. They are only responsible for the task that they are assigned. So these users also will be able to receive the tasks. They will be able to finish the task and say, I'm done, add evidences, add the comments, and then submit it back to the crisis manager. So these users also will be treated as light operators. That is this one. But apart from this, we also had an requirement or an enhancement request from our customers that we have business managers from each business unit or the head of business units who want to be notified and approve, will be involved in review and approval process of these things. So they will be able to review and approve all of these records, but they won't be able to make any edits in the record. They can simply say it's approved and they can make a comment why it was approved, or they can say it's rejected and why it's got rejected, right? So they will be able to do that. And these users who are participating in the approval process as well will be counted as light operators. So there's going to be a difference in licensing. The light operators are not going to be licensed as equal as the operator users. This will be lesser than that. Of course, this is a subset of things that these users can do in the system, right? These are the operations that they can do. This is what will be available for these users. But for enabling the BCM light operators, you will have to have either BCM standard or BCM professional applications installed. So this will be like an add-on. You have some operators and then you have some light operators, in other terms, right? People who are the heavy users, and we have a subset of activities assigned to some light users. That is the only precondition for this. And this is also generally available from 4th of August this month. This is the enhancement on light operators. Let me see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I can show you more details on this. Okay, is the light user role assigned dynamically as you add a contributor? No, you will have to add that as one of the roles for the users, and then you can select them here. Is there capability today or thought for the future to be able to restrict access to only the plans BIAs that they own contribute? Yeah, currently when we say they will be able to participate in the BIAs, they will be able to participate only in the ones they are added as a contributor, unless you're a heavy user. Of course, the heavy users would be able to look at everything. The assumption made was these are your BCM managers, the subject matter experts who want to look at the plans across the teams, right? But we will be working on ACLs. There are some enhancements in the roadmap coming up, not just for BCM, but across the risk products. Right. The next question is there light user role assigned dynamically? Yeah. It's not assigned dynamically. You will have to assign it and then select that user. They will be able to participate in BIAs. That's the prerequisite for this, right? There are some more details that I can share with you guys here on this one. We can go deeper as time permits. So how does the light operator get identified, right? The light operator will be identified if the user has any of these roles. It can be all these roles or a combination of these, right? So there is a contributor, there is a viewer, there is a recovery team member, there's a viewer again, and then you'll see some more contributor and viewers. These are the ones that will be counted as a light user if the user has only these roles or some of these roles, right? If the user has, let me quickly go into the next one. If the user has any of these roles assigned, right? they will be counted as operators, basically. That is, if you assign any of these roles, these users would be able to create a new BIA. For example, they will be able to set up administrative activities, right? Those roles or those users who have these will automatically get counted as operators. So it's important for you to segregate this. We have made this available in documentation as well. What are the roles to be assigned to operators? What are the roles to be assigned to light operators? The moment you add this to a light operator, any of one of these roles, they will get counted as operator from the next cycle. So that is this one. And we will share this PowerPoint as well. So this tells you how this is getting tracked. Basically, you can see each role. This is in the previous slides, and how that is classified in the system. And you would be able to see how they are getting tracked on every cycle, right? Whether that is a BCM operator or a light operator. These are the user names. Based on the roles assigned, this is the reason why they are tagged as this. And then you would be able to see, let me quickly go into this, the screenshots and where they can participate in this cycle. That is, the green ones that you see here are the areas where they would be able to participate. That is the light users, and what they can do has been called out. I'll share this PowerPoint. This is in BIA. These are the screens, and they would be able to access their tasks from assignments. They can make changes and they can submit it, basically, right? Add dependencies. This is the approvers. You can select the approvers here. Then they would be able to open the record and then say approve or reject. Once they open the record, and they can review or they can provide the comments. But if you see, for the light user, who's the approver, they won't be able to change the name of the BIA or any of the fields. They can only review that, add comments, and then they can say approve or rejected. This is the same functionality for BCP, exercise, etc. Right? These are the next steps. Basically, the same thing for plans, and then this will continue on for exercises as well. I'll stop with the presentation here. There are a couple of questions on the chat. We can take that up, and then we can address your rest of the questions over email.
And there's also one question in the actual Q&A, which was, are there any roles that can leverage a group in ServiceNow, or do we always have to specifically call out individuals?
You can call it individuals. So yeah, it is individuals, and the roles that you need to tag. It's a user role combination. Now, what is the user role BCM Lite? I hope I addressed that in the PowerPoint that I was presenting. Just give me a second.
That was actually before you went through in detail. So if there's additional questions, then we can. But I think that was before you detailed a lot of the roles.
So you don't need the planner role for changing. There's another question in the chat that says, currently you need the planner role to access almost anything in the system. You don't need to be a planner, but you need to be a plan viewer, right? So that's what I was explaining earlier. So these are the roles that you would need for your light user, basically plan viewer, BIA viewer, contributor, member viewer. This is the one, right? So there are granular roles that we have created, and then there are the top level roles, right? So these are the granular roles that we classify as your BCM light operator. And these roles, if you have any of this, for example, the planner that you're asking about, this role will get classified as your operator license, right? So that is the next enhancement. Like I said, we will be sharing these questions with you guys. I mean, questions, answers, and the PowerPoint and the recording. Thanks for joining, guys. We are on top of the hour. I'll stop here.